I'd just like to confirm that this is audible. Hi, can anyone confirm that I'm heard?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. In that case, welcome to round 5. The case building time is over, so I'd like to check that everyone's here. May I please ask that, is Bobby here? Bobby, are you here? I'll check later. Is Dafa here?
Yeah, here.
Great. Is Adib here?
Adib here, Kak.
Thank you. And is Gita here?
Yes, here.
Wonderful. All right, I think then we're good to go with everybody. Teams, if you could kindly put your speaking order in the chat. Thanks, CG. Thanks, OO. If we can have it from closing opposition and opening government as well, that would be great. In the meantime, once again, welcome to round 5. My name is Upi. I'll be your chair for this round. You're requested to turn on your video. I will be turning off my video and maybe turning it on during intermission, just so that not to be distracting. You're welcome to turn on your video throughout the duration of the debate. Just 2 more announcements when it comes to housekeeping that I'd like to make before the round starts. The first thing is that you are requested to keep time for your speech as well as for everybody else's speech. I will be sharing timing markers in the chat. That would be 1, 6, and 7, and 7:15. Speaking time is as usual 7 minutes. No further notes will be taken after 7:00, and you have 15 seconds to wrap up your speech gracefully. So please be mindful of that. And those timing markers that I share are probably not going to be as consistent because I'm going to be focusing on taking notes. So the most consistent timing mark that you will have is your own device. So please do have one beside you. The other thing that I'd like to note is that you are really encouraged to take at least 1 POI per speaker. So please use it as a point of engagement. And you are requested to share your preferred POI preference when it comes to your opponents asking POI to you ahead of your speech. Yeah, so just mention if you prefer POI via chat or via unmuting, whatever is most comfortable with you, let us know, and everybody else will heed it. Okay, that will be it. If there's any technical issues, do let us know at the soonest. Hopefully there will be none, and wishing everybody the very best of luck for this. Are there any questions before we start the round? Good. If none, then Prime Minister, without further ado, you're requested to speak and open the case for your side. Here.
Okay, thanks. I'll wait a minute. Okay, my gender pronouns is he or him, and my POI preference is just unmute yourself. Right, I'll start my timer. Okay, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So, ladies and gentlemen, panels, I'll try to explain to you why that the Brexit exists, ladies and gentlemen. You know that Britain is one of the part of the European Union itself, and ladies and gentlemen, at the past, ladies and gentlemen, such a Britain that not have such a stable economic or something like that, and so that's why they just try to being the part of the European Union itself, ladies and gentlemen. By joining to the European Union, the Britain have such a stable the economic in the Britain itself to become more stable or just something like that. But at the end of the day, because of during the time or just something like that, ladies and gentlemen, the Britain just think that the European Union just try to involve a lot for the the Britain itself, ladies and gentlemen. For the example, maybe one of the negative impacts of joining to the European Union itself is they just try to put a lot of immigrants to the Britain's area or just something like that. And so that's why, ladies and gentlemen, because the Britain government just try to consider between the negative and the positive impacts of joining to the European Union itself, they just think that it's better for them to go out or just don't be the part of the Britain itself, of the European Union itself. And so that's why, ladies and gentlemen, the Brexit is exists, that they just try it's such a document that they want to go out from the European Union itself. Ladies and gentlemen, that I've explained to you before about the causes of the existing of the Brexit document itself, ladies and gentlemen. I think that there are so many negative impacts that some of the negative impacts of the European Union itself, ladies and gentlemen. And so that's why in this case, as the government side of the house, we will try to encourage and try to welcome the membership for the Balkan countries and the Eastern European and the Eastern Europe as the European Union itself, ladies and gentlemen. Let's move to the mechanism that we will try to over, ladies and gentlemen, in this debate. First, ladies and gentlemen, we will try to make such a diplomatic thing, such a diplomatic meeting or just something like that for all of the Balkans and the Eastern Europe, and we will just try to explain to them that something that just happened for the Britannian, it will not happen at the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, we know that in our stance in the government side of the house is very clear that we just want to give the positive impacts for both of the sides, for all of the European Union and also for the countries that will be welcome for the European Union itself. In this case, it's Balkan countries and the Eastern Europe itself. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 points of my argumentations. First, I'll try to explain to you why that the European Union need the changes of the exit of the Britain itself. And the second, I'll just try to explain to you about the positive impacts that will happen for the European Union and also for the European Union and for the Balkans and the Eastern Europe countries, ladies and gentlemen. Let's move to my first argumentations. Ladies and gentlemen, the European Union need the changes of the Britain itself, ladies and gentlemen, because that I have explained to you that Britain is one of the area of the European Union that just try to gather most of the immigrants there. So, ladies and gentlemen, because of the exit of the European Union itself, it gives such a negative impacts for the European Union. Because, so, ladies and gentlemen, I think that the European Union need the changes of the Britain itself for the place to just try to gather all of the immigrants from another country or just something like that. But, ladies and gentlemen, in the government side of the house, we just try to make sure that all of the pressures that just accepted by the Britain at the past that make them exit from the European Union, it will not happen, ladies and gentlemen, because we will have such an diplomatic or just some of the promise that will be declared in the meeting that we will be declared, like that we will be celebrate. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that these motions is important to do because that I have explained to you that the European Union just needs such a changes of the Britain itself as the most area of together such an immigrants from another country or just something like that. Move to my second argumentation, ladies and gentlemen. What's the positive impacts for all of the Balkans and the Eastern Europe countries that will be welcome for the European Union? Ladies and gentlemen, that I've explained to you at the first of my speech that the reason that why that Britain decided to joining to the European Union is that because they just want to make their economic or just their government to become better or just something like that. Ladies and gentlemen, we know that the Balkans and the Eastern Europe there are some of the developing countries there, and ladies and gentlemen, we know that their economic or their government or just something like that, it is not stable enough. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that by joining to the European Union, it means that they will have the opportunity. They will they will get the opportunity and get the chances to just try to improve their government and their economic or something like that. That done by the Britain at the past, ladies and gentlemen. So I think that So I think that by doing that, it means that it will give a lot of positive impacts for also the Balkan and the Eastern Europe countries itself. So ladies and gentlemen, I think at the end of the day, by doing this, by welcome the Balkans and the Eastern Europe countries itself, it will such a give the positive impacts for the both sides, for the European Union, that they will get the changes of the Britain and or the negative impacts because of the Brexit document itself. And the second one, the Balkans. The Balkan and the Eastern Europe countries also will get the positive impacts by improvement on their government and their economic or just something like that. So they will be such a better country or just something like that. So ladies and gentlemen, that's all for my argumentations. Okay, it's 6 minutes, sorry. So that's all, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to thank the Prime Minister for those very fine remarks. To begin the case from the opposition side of the House, I'd like to welcome the Leader of Opposition to speak. Hear, hear.
Check. Am I audible?
You are.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. My POI preference is through chat, and if you guys, my gender pronouns, of course, is he or him. Can I have 10 seconds to rearrange my paper? Is that okay? Okay. Okay, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. As the EU, as an actor, we would like to take an actions that are beneficial for us, but also doing our responsibility to help each other at the same time. We think welcoming Balkan countries and also Eastern Europe countries are not a very significant, strategically beneficial for us as organizations, and we don't want to pursue that even further. Now, before continuing to our case, let's do several engagement towards what they said, towards the opening opposition said. They are talking about how exactly it will bring the benefit for Balkan countries and the Eastern Europe itself. But no, it will not, because it will not help the EU economy at all. First, because the Balkan countries are unstable and does not give a significant economic activities to the EU. Therefore, it will not help the situations or the EU itself. Secondly, because they are unstable, when they are become the member of EU, they have the responsibility. We have the responsibility to help them to become stable. Therefore, creating other burden that, just like what the OG said, that the British just got out, it's not something that really beneficial, and it's really beneficial. And also the same case when the Brexit just exists. So we don't need other responsibility at this current moment, right? Now, come to what exactly the case of the opening oppositions. We will talk about 2 things why we're not doing this. We're going to separate our analysis on Balkan countries and Eastern countries. And secondly, we're going to give you a new mechanism on how respectfully we're going to help this Eastern country, both of these countries at the same time, right? Now, let's talk about the Balkan country itself. Why we are not going to help them? Like I've mentioned before, Balkan. Let's see what currently happened in the Balkan. What is the characteristic of the Balkan countries? We're going to separate these Balkan countries within 2 analyses. First, some of the Balkan countries are not aligned with the EU principle itself. For example, we say that most of them are not adopting or the value of the EU. For example, most of them has not implied a good democracy, does not valuing the anti-corruption, nepotism, and so on and so forth. And we see and how exactly in the case of Albania, when some of the people are actually, the leader is actually not quite with dictatorism, but does not adopt this EU value. That's if we'll say we are welcoming them. This is not something that suit the EU interest, because actually the EU interest in here, we're actually maintaining our value by creating a good spreading the value of democracy, respecting human rights, and so on and so forth, right? If let's say we are welcoming these Balkan countries, most of the Balkan countries that are not actually aligned with our values, is actually going to hamper the EU itself. Now, regardless, ladies and gentlemen, for example, like not every Balkan countries have that, right? We're going to talk the second layer of analysis, that even if like there is still some of them that actually there are actually that still adopting good democracy, we are saying that some of them are politically unstable and also economically unstable at the same time. We say that politically unstable, for example, let's move to that. Some of them are currently facing situations where they are facing a lot of, for example, separatism, when we see in Albania, ladies and gentlemen, and it is something that requires a lot of attention because of this, because of unstable political conditions. It creates also economical instability at the same time. We say, and secondly, because they are also economically unstable, we see how some of countries are impacted during the pandemic, and how exactly the case of Ukraine and Russia also impact them at the same time, right? So the thing about this, why this is not going to be good for EU if, let's say, we accept them. And second, because EU have this principle to help each other. If we pass this, if we, let's say, pursue these countries, we are unable to help them, and yet we are unable to help them, and secondly, it will import the instability to within the EU itself, and which is not something that we are actually interested with. For example, because currently EU are unable to help everyone, ladies and gentlemen. For example, after the Brexit exists, for example, it's actually hampered EU a lot, and the fact that we need to help this country, and they are also politically unstable and economically unstable, is not going to sit with our interest. It will give us so many responsibility while we have other things to pay attention for example, like Russia and so on and so forth, right? Now, even if let's say for this country itself, when they are joining the EU, they will have this responsibility to contribute to EU itself. Meanwhile, they are not yet politically and economically unstable. It will force them to do something that they shouldn't have done, ladies and gentlemen, and to think about something that they are not yet to should think of. Now, let's talk about the Eastern European countries, ladies and gentlemen, and why exactly we are not going to pursue them. We understand that there is a tensions around the Eastern European country, especially how the Russia is trying to persuade a lot of countries in the Eastern European to that are used to be these USSR countries, a part of the USSR countries, right? When we are pursuing this Eastern European country, it's going to be very risky for us and for them at the same time. We will say that we are going to leave this Eastern European country as a buffer zone between us and Russia, because if, let's say, we pursuing this specifically after Eastern European country, it will give a reason for Russia to actually be more aggressive and be more doing something that maybe we wouldn't think of, because that's exactly what Russia did. Like, Russia is a very unpredictable actor. There are movement that we cannot predict. If, let's say, we are doing this, it will actually risk us at the same time. It will actually good to maintain a buffer zone between the EU and the Russia itself, and this Eastern European country will be the buffer zone. If, let's say, they are actually, because if, let's say, they are a part of us and we'll need to help them, and buffer zone, let's say it will make us quite a bit safe at the same time, right? And also, it's also risky for them, for us to join in the EU. For example, we see how Ukraine actually trying to pursue EU, and they are being attacked by Russia at the same time. This is not a very good conditions for this Eastern European country, and also for the EU at the same time, because it's actually creating this buffer zone, and we don't want to deal with Russia currently, right? Now, what is our mechanizations that we're going to talk about these motions, right? We say that we're going to stick with EU principle, which is like we are going to give them aid, just like what we did, but we understand that the aid itself is not enough, right? It's not helping them much, because in fact, in the current status quo, they are still struggling, they are still, having this instability itself. But not only we are going to do this, but we are going to try to open a trade zone, for example, meanwhile trying to help them slowly, ladies and gentlemen, and at the same time we are going to make sure that they are adopting our value, for example, like a good democracy, because they will follow up, because they will get this aid and they will join EU and get receiving this economical benefit at the same time. With this mechanization, we can help this process of instability, and later on they can join us in the EU if they are stable enough. Because of that, we're proud to oppose. Thank you.
For those very kind remarks. I would like to call next the speaker from Mr.
Okay, am I audible?
You are, yeah.
Okay. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, first of all, I'm sorry. I forgot to set up my timer. Okay, I'll repeat. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, first of all, some rebuttal points for the opening opposition. Now, the opening opposition argumentation is basically circling around that, that these Balkan countries and these Eastern Europe countries are not very unstable. They are not very unstable in economic and also not very unstable in their political agenda. So then we supposed not to help them because our value is different. But then, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the EU goal itself and how actually that by welcoming these countries, by welcoming these Balkan countries and also Eastern Europe countries, we can actually still promote our goals, our main goal as EU, and then still give the help that they need to actually maintain in these current conditions. Now, the EU goal itself is actually to promote peace and their values, and also to actually create well-being for the citizen itself, right? It means that freedom and also social justice will have to be there in those countries, right? And why the EU is standing here right now to actually welcoming them is because we want to promote those to those countries. Yes, the opening opposition is trying to say that, we will give them help, we'll make them adapt, in these current conditions. And then after that, when they are already stable, they are going to enter the EU, right? But then, ladies and gentlemen, when actually is the question, right? When is this country actually are going to be stable is something that is very questionable, because we doesn't know in the current condition that is not very particular going to be straight is there as the country is going to keep developing, or they're going to get worse. And in this case, EU is there to actually help them, to become the supporters, to actually become their solutions within these problems right now. Now, let's go with the opening opposition argumentations. Now, the opening argumentation is trying to say that it will not help the EU. This because of this country is like a burden to them, because EU doesn't want any burden to their country, right? But then, ladies and gentlemen, let's see in the Brexit itself right now. The Brexit is actually giving us a lot of bad impact to EU itself and to the country of EU. And by actually adding this country, we can actually maintain the things that we lost because of the Brexit. For example, like trading. For example, like resources and stuff that we doesn't get from the British when they're already out. And that is why we actually want to make this country to actually come to the European Union itself. And also they are trying to generalize every country in Balkan and also Eastern Europe as a country that is not developed, and as a country that is not unstable. That is a country that have a very poor economy and have a very poor politics, for example, right? But then it's not really like that. Not every country in Eastern Europe and also Balkan countries have those conditions, right? There are there are a lot actually countries in Balkan and also Eastern European that are already pretty stable enough for to join the EU itself. And so then why do we believe to actually welcome all of them? We can actually make them more developed and also basically able to survive in the current condition, right? And then they also mentioned about how the Eastern country is actually the barrier between us and Russia, and how Russia can be aggressive. And this is the question in their argumentation that has come from the opening government, is that what is the Russian interest to actually attack them, right? We do believe that actually by supporting them to get in the EU itself, we're actually saving them from the problem with the Russia itself. Currently, the Russian and also Ukrainian problem, I think, is pretty exclusive. The Russian will not, I don't think that we believe that the Russian will not actually attack European Union in a whole, because it will actually create the war between European Union and Russia. If you see the comparison of the power, of course, Russian will think twice about attacking all the European Union, for example. Like so, ladies and gentlemen, we do believe that the main point of our argumentation in the opening government is to, first of all, the unity of the unity and also the safety guarantee from the EU itself, and then secondly, how we can actually make these countries in Balkan countries and also Eastern Europe better in whole, right? Okay, moving on to my argumentations. I have two argumentations. The first one is related to the unity itself and how actually EU is going to provide us better security. Now, ladies and gentlemen, EU itself want to give the peace and also want to give and promote the well-being of its citizens. And in this case, what we're going to do as the government itself, when we are welcoming the membership of these countries, we are basically going to give them a well-being that they wanted and they needed in the current situation right now. When we are seeing the current status quo, we can see that the war is happening, the Brexit is happening, and then how the bad economy is going on a lot of sectors, and how actually this energy problems also already occurs in so many levels. that we also have to make a mitigating actions to actually make those problems doesn't get bigger and bigger and bigger. And Europe is one of the place where this problem is getting very, very bad. And if we doesn't really, secure this country, for example, Balkan countries and also Eastern Europe, of course, those countries will also fall apart because of this problem. And so that is why we actually want to give help and welcome them to join the membership with the EU. And now how actually it's going to be beneficial with EU and also going to be beneficial for this country itself. For the countries, of course, they will get help, they will get securities, they will get a lot of backup by other countries, right? And for the EU itself, we already achieved our goal to promote peace and also to give the well-being of its citizens. So I don't think it's going to ruin our value. The value will come later. If they doesn't really want to follow our value now, at least we already support them, or we already save them from the current problem that we have right now. Moving on, the good communication, also better trade route and collaboration can also happen in the moment when we are welcoming these Balkan countries and also Eastern Europe to our EU, right? We can also give we give and take, for example, that is the current condition, right? And then the war itself, when we see the current war, the Ukraine, one of the reasons why Ukraine is now being attacked by the Russia itself, because Ukraine doesn't have a chance to actually join the EU at the first place. They are late to join the EU, and then that is why Russia is actually brave enough to attack the Ukraine itself. So then why do we believe that by welcoming these Balkan countries and Eastern Europe can actually secure them? Because I don't believe that Russia will be able to brave enough to attack these countries that have this union, this European Union. And then secondly, how it's going to be good for the people and also for the country, right? We do believe that by supporting them with the EU, they will be able to fix their problems between other countries too, their bilateral problems, and also can improve their countries in so many ways. In the economic ways, in the political ways, in their social ways, we can also fix them because we are now collaborating to one each other. We are now working toward one each other, because most of this country, as you know, is a developing countries. And because of they are joining to the European Union, we believe that we can actually make them as a developed country and to secure their well-being, secure their economic, and also to secure their safety. And it can be the stepping points, a stepping stone for them to actually grow better after the crisis and can be much better country and can work together better for the European Union. So we don't believe that by welcoming the membership of the Balkan countries and Eastern Europe can bring harms both to the countries and also can bring harms both to the European Union, because we believe that in our side of the house it will actually give a big benefit to both of parties. So that is why we are proud to propose. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for those very fine remarks. And to close the opening half, I'd like to invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition to speak. Here.
Check, am I audible?
You are.
All right. Wait, my gender pronouns is she or her. My PR preference just through the chat box. But before that, give me 5 seconds to arrange my paper. Right. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The logic from OO is pretty simple. How could you try to help people, to help someone that when and by welcoming them as a member, meanwhile that you really recognize and you really realize that your power is totally different with the one that would like you to help to begin with. But before I jump to my arguments, several detail for the opening governments of the house that will also intertwine with the extension from my first speaker have said before. But okay. Let's talk about the questions. The question that came up from the OG when they were asking us what is actually the interest of the Russia, for example, and why then the reason of why Russia would like to start a war and so on and so forth. Right? Here's the things. The reason why Russia attacked the Ukraine because the Ukraine Ukraine, that US also you are pushing for Ukraine EU membership, Mr. Madam Chair, and also this is why the Russia felt that Russia will felt they are threatened, in which led them to the war, which with in the current political climate this could be in this days would be happen again, because that in which also bring the threat to EU countries to begin with. And also we for sure that we don't want those things happen, right? I mean, the thing is that Russia will think that we are knocking their own door and would like to start a war, because that we finally welcoming the Eastern Europe to as a member of EU, Mr. Madam Chair. Why? Because that if you Mr. Chair, take a look about how the position of the EU position of the Eastern Europe itself is exactly beside of the Russia itself. You think how it is? You think because that is why we think that as the OO, it is going to be better for the Eastern Europe itself will not be the membership of us as the Europe the EU itself to begin with, right? And now let's take a look at how the characterization from the OG to begin with. Their characterization is that the EU is affected because of the Brexit. Within that welcoming Balkan and also Eastern countries will just create more problem, like my first speaker already said to you, that that you cannot just simply compare about how the UK and also the Balkan or Eastern Europe countries to begin with, because that this is not an apple-to-apple comparison to begin with, right? And also, when we say the resources within the EU are sufficient, that we don't need, and therefore we don't need them to join EU member to be able to have the resources that we need. Meanwhile, which is that we will creating the threat zones, for example, that will then isn't us to have the resources and also energy that we need, Mr. Madam Chair. And also, coming to my several extension about how this is going to be a bad idea for us as the EU, would just simply welcoming the Balkan countries, also the Eastern Europe, like my first speaker have said to you before. But based on how based on how Rahan already explained to you before, you see how you take Mr. Chair, if you take your notes, if you take a look to your notes, that you will see about how the risk is to the risk is really too high if we are welcoming those Balkan countries also as an Europe as membership of us, because that how this is going to be creating a much more bad impact, because that those countries are not stable yet. Well, in terms of economic and political interest, political side, Mr. Manager. No, thank you. And also, when they explain what when we as you all try to explain what how this is actually that when we keep helping and by welcoming them as a membership to is not to help them. It's actually to welcoming them, but also. It's not to welcoming them, but also just to give them aid, because it is going to be more better for both of the side, which is the EU and also the Balkan countries, also the Eastern Europe is the question that would the burden of proof from the OG is pretty simple. Why then by supporting them is actually the only way is. The only way to supporting them is by welcoming them as a member. Those that simple questions were not answering enough by the opening government, and we demand explanation from this opposing government why this is actually this is the exclusive way for EU to finally to help those Balkan countries with and also Eastern Europe with the several bad impact that we have already explained to you before, that to help them is actually to welcoming them as a membership to begin with, and that is why we're very proud to oppose. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, DLO, for those very fine remarks. I would like to call next the member of government to speak and open the second half of the debate. Here. Member of Gov.
Yeah, sorry. Am I audible, Kak?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, POI preferred method is through chat, please. Preferred gender pronouns is he, they. POI preferred method is through chat. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ensuring the membership of Balkan countries and Eastern Europe, I think it is going to be very, very beneficial for European country that they can control this part of Balkan and Eastern country, right? Because in current status quo, this part of European Union already do establish trading with EU, already establishing trading with this part of Balkan countries or even Eastern countries, right? I think it's better moment we insert them into the membership because two things, right? Number one, it is going to smoothen the trading between this part of members, but second of all, it is going to benefit to the policy of trading. It is going to benefit to the actors in the day, right? But second of all, I think you can control the policy. For example, resources like natural and gas, or even labor protection, or even oil and tax, right? I think this is very important interest of EU because since they would also engage to the democratic value, for example, I think it's going to be better. I think it is going to be better. But what happened in current status quo, Russia is very arbitrary. They can easily set the price of oil even to the high expenses or even lower expenses, right? I think it is implicated to EU indirectly. I think this part of membership can counter those Russia that is very arbitrary in the end of the day, right? But thirdly, we told you that by not ensuring this membership, it is going to be harmful in opposition because non-democratic countries or even Eastern, like Russia that would like to form the Uni Soviet, is going to be bigger, right? I think it is better coming from us because we ensure and we claim them as the membership in of day. What opening debate lacks, right? They only explain, okay, there is the benefit and we can ensure growth for the both sides, but never likelihood analysis. Hence, if benefit of OG benefits cannot fly without the explanation coming from CG in my extension, right? So engage to all offers. They told you that, oh, we should not accept the file, we should not accept them because it is not interest of the value and they are not democratic, right? I think exactly Balkan countries are exactly in the border and influence non-democratic. I think it's better for EU to control directly this Balkan. This is parallel, like Poland cases that Poland is the membership of EU, but Poland right now want to shift to the monarch. I think it is easy to EU to control directly in Poland. Exactly, Poland society don't want to be monarch, but at the end of the day, EU can control it enough day, right? So I think it's going to be very good if you control this part of democratic enough day. But if OO is too ideologic, for example, not accepting them, I think EU also help on do cooperation with Middle East country, which is also not democratic enough day, which is also the leader Muslim enough day. So I think all should defend why then it is not going to be working, because politics is always diverse and dynamic, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot be topic by just simply accept rejecting them because of their value. This response is better coming from OG because OG only explained that, oh, we should help them, but necessarily thinking why then value is acceptable and lower the bar of standard as EU enough day, right? But kind of all, they told you that, oh, Russia tension is going to be higher because we accept them as membership. I think tension of Russia is very acceptable because we concede that Russia is very aggressive right now. But kind of all, at least we can counter Russia because more territory that we can occupy, like natural resources that taken by this part of Balkan countries are so much, right? Oil, natural gas, for example, we can occupy them. But of all, we are very powerful than Russia. In European Union, we have Germany or even France that has high military that can counter Russia, or even European Union has NATO and also backed up by USA in of day. So I think even the worst case scenario, there is a tension between Russia and also European Union, we can counter them and we can also fight them against, right? So approving to substantive material. Why then it is very important to be taken by EU? Because both sides have the natural resources, but at least in CG, the natural resources is going to be taken to the right atau end of the day. This is going to engage the entire cases of telling that this is not beneficial. I think resources are very useful in this part of Balkan countries and Eastern country. Look at, for example, Albania has natural gas and even oil, for example. I think this part of Eastern or Balkan countries, we acknowledge that there is still lack of technology and they are still fragile, right? I think they really need third parties to help them. I think this third party is going to be better because we ensure EU to give membership, right? This membership going to guarantee you at least it is not taken by Russia or even other external parties. But second of all, we can also utilize this part of natural resources in terms of pragmatic benefit, right? We can also use technology to extract this part of oil that benefited to them, right? But all talks about, oh, this part of country are not stable. I don't stable, then hence we should not accept them, right? I think if we can ensure the stability, but the benefit is more, right? Because we receive the natural resources, the benefit is more because you can have profit more. But kind of all, in the past, Greece is also bankrupt, and also you give 3 times bailout, right? Shows to you even this country are not stable, for example, but you still help them, right? I think it is perfectly fine if they are not stable to begin with, right? So therefore, I think it's going to be better. But second of all, it is going to be better because we can also occupy the distribution land. Look at in the distribution land. Look at in the Balkan or even Eastern country, there is the Adriatic Adriatic Sea or even Ionian Sea that can counter the distribution land coming from Russia, because Russia distribution land is also passing to that sea that currently in the Eastern or even Balkan countries. I think it's going to be better in context of trading and also trading between this country, because it is going to be healthier by this part of EU. But kind of all, the expenses of territory that by distribution land is going to be benefited enough day. But next argument, right? Why then the protection of influence of Russia is going to be matter? I think DPM already touched a little bit, but they never explain why then it's very important, right? I think right now this part of Balkan and Eastern countries are very fragile and are very weak, right? They are most likely going to be powered by Russia, right? Russia is very aggressive into annexing Crimea and moreover annexing Ukraine, for example. I think Russia is not a reliable actor because three things: they are very exploitative and implicate to Crimea. Look at Crimea right now; is very poor, but Russia never want to be accountable to that poverty that can also that implicate them, right? So it means that Russia is very arbitrary. But comparatively, this is the interest of EU to counter Russia policy that is very arbitrary and help these para small countries that natural resources can be utilized through the actor by this membership. But more alliance that is going to be better. I think this is going to be better because you can save this para natural resources through the right actor, which is the membership coming from EU. This analysis is very important analysis, because in order OG benefit fly, is through CG explanation enough by telling that this is going to be taken by the right actor through this part of EU membership enough day. But let's look up the trade-off. Why then the tension is acceptable enough day? I think tension is very acceptable because we also can be powerful enough day moment we can ensure this part of oil through military occupation, for example, or military things, for example, that support this part of oil natural resources that coming from the Eastern and also Balkan countries, so we can counter the Brexit or even Russia countries that are very arbitrary. So proudly to open the debate. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Member of Gulf, for those very fine remarks. I'd like to invite Member of Opposition to speak next. Here.
So for PO, I preference just unmute yourself because I'm not going to see you in the chat box. And for gender pronouns is she or her. And I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing. Actually, our stand is clear. Like, we don't want Brexit happen again, and we want to survive, ladies and gentlemen, and as an European Union itself. So why we don't want Brexit happen again? Because actually British is the one of potential country that we have to protect that, because as an EU we want every country to depend on each other and have a benefit toward each other. So, and also here's the things. Also say that the reason why they don't want to accept Eastern Europe is because actually they have a different ideology with the EU because it is a democracy and so forth. But actually that's not the point, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the things like what happened in the opening debate, ladies and gentlemen. Actually in the opening they don't really have a clear stand what happened in the EU right now, what happened in the Europe right now. So actually in the EU right now it's almost winter, and in the winter we need something hard to make us keep warm, ladies and gentlemen. And what we need, ladies and gentlemen, to survive, what we need is actually oil, ladies and gentlemen, which is we know like in Russia and Ukraine right now still have a conflict which Russia is cut 100% exporting oil from other country, which is we have to think about this first, ladies and gentlemen, the survivability of our people in the European itself. So why we have to think about welcoming other country that actually not beneficial for us. So but here's our goal is want to survive and by sticking the status quo. So here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, when we have to welcome someone, when they are beneficial for us, and also when they don't harm us, ladies and gentlemen. So what actually Eastern Europe country is. So the OG have a wrong define that actually Eastern European, like they are in the welfare and so forth, but actually, ladies and gentlemen, European Union is the characterization of that countries, they are corrupt and developed country, and because that country was from Union Soviet, so right, so the Eastern Europe itself. So the characterization of the country who from Union Soviet, like they usually undeveloped and also they usually corrupt and so forth. So they're gonna, and also at the end of the day, they won't gonna give us benefit. If they said they want to, if they said as an undeveloped country, they will give us benefit by give the cheap labor, ladies and gentlemen. That's even become the big problem for us because most of cheap labor by default, if we help so if we accept them, if we accept that country who have undeveloped if we accept undeveloped country and that country have cheap labor, it becomes harm for us because by default, if we welcome them, we most likely exchange the human resource. So just imagine if there is a cooperation, if there is a indigenous people, we have to pay for $500, and there is a cheap labor that may be from Eastern Europe because they are from undeveloped country, they may be only getting paid for $25. And of course, as a corporation, we want high profit, and as high profit. We want cheap employees. We want to give cheap employees means like at the end of the day we can get higher profit for the company. So just imagine like as a country is accepted or welcomed, they will take the job of the indigenous peoples, and the country who have a good income will blame for the EU because of the job of the indigenous get caught by the people who already from that undeveloped countries and so forth. So that's become our disadvantage. So just imagine by that, of course, makes other country from Europe will go out because they will feel lost because they lost good income. Just imagine if they lost them, we will lose good income country and keep unless useless country, ladies and gentlemen. And if this happen, which one we have to choose? Of course, we want to keep the good country like such as British and so forth. So before that, there is a Greece, ladies and gentlemen. They actually become burden for EU. They actually undeveloped countries and so forth. And because we know, like usually EU is we want to keep in peace. EU intention is actually we want to keep in peace by makes every country develop. Every countries depends on each other, right? So. And also how to usually EU work, they have to help each other if there is a country who suffer using debt and so forth. So if we likely to help them is more likely we spend more money. So just imagine what happened in the Kosovo and Serbia, which is it's actually in a European in a Eastern Europe, ladies and gentlemen. If we accept them, the Kosovo and Serbia is actually in a conflict, ladies and gentlemen. So if we accept them, we can have a double job. We want to reconcile them, and also we have to pay for them because actually they are undeveloped country, ladies and gentlemen. So and also it's against our principle as an European Union. We want peace, right? So why we have to accept conflict country, ladies and gentlemen? So if the OOC they will if the OG say they will promoting well-being, so and so forth, and they will peace and so and so forth by make Europe depends on each other, so and so forth. But actually that's not the parameter. Actually we still can make them depends on us, because Eastern Union is undeveloped country and most of EU is developing country. So they will develop they will depend on us still, ladies and gentlemen. So I think that's not the parameter, and by that they cannot get promoted well-being, because everybody will see EU as actually not strong anymore, because they accept undeveloped country and make better and make Brexit again in the worst case scenario. And even if they will get promoted well-being, they will suffer more inside, because they have to accept Kosovo and Serbia, which is they're actually in a conflict, and we have to reconcile them, and we have to help other undeveloped country, which is actually also suffering because of because of Russian won't export oil again, ladies and gentlemen. So by helping on welcoming Muslim country, we cannot have a good peace and promoted well-being, because yeah, at the end of the day, it's harmful for EU itself, and yeah, that's why I oppose. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Member Valp. As a last say from GovBench, I would like to invite the GovWhip to speak. Here.
Am I audible?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Give me some seconds to arrange my paper and set my timer. Gender pronouns is she or her, anything that you want to refer. POI, please unmute yourself. I'm not going to check the chat box, but do not bombard me. I'm going to take your POI, so don't worry. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Opposition bench is very problematic. Well, let's talk about how OO actually messed up in this debate. First, they define that, oh, Balkan and also Eastern countries are very problematic. They are undeveloped. They are very unstable, and that's why we do not have to. We do not want to accept them as member of the EU itself. But then they also propose a mechanism that, oh, we can also have an open trade zone and whatsoever to give economic trade in itself. Then first, what is the likelihood in itself, right? Because exactly if OO already portrayed that they are that bad or is that severely bad, then meaning that your open trade will not going to happen in the end of the day, because these countries are already messed up in the first place. So first, the mechanism cannot gonna fly in the end of the day. But let's talk about CO, right? I think that CO also still repetitive with what OO already said to you, but most importantly, when they try to say that, oh, this kind of cheap labor is going to be destructive for the native people, or for the developing people inside of the EU in itself, right? We think that this is exactly the problem, right? Because when you are trying to welcome them as member of the EU, then you have more power to also regulate how the the labor policy inside of these Balkan and also Eastern countries in itself. For more then you can also try to prevent that there is no cheap labor happening again in your countries, for example, right? That's why this kind of issue is going to be only solved in government side of the house. Moreover, this is also going to be very bad in CO, because exactly countries companies are profit oriented. They will most likely to take from the Balkan and also Eastern countries, no matter that they come from the EU membership or not, right? Because this is still cheap, and also the countries are not still haven't regulated this kind of policy about labor in itself. So that's why it is still going to be happen, and also even worst case in the opposition side of the house. But second, when the idea they say that countries in EU have to depend on in each other, right? We don't say that this is not true, because this is very true. But how can countries contribute to the EU? It's very different, right? For example, like Germany and also France also contribute to the safety or protection. For example, Balkan and also Eastern countries exactly going to protect for the EU in itself, because they are also the buffer zone coming from the Russia, and also they have the natural gas that they can take, because Russia already cut off all of the gas coming to the EU in itself because of the Russia and also Russia-Ukraine conflict in itself, right? Meaning the EU is in dire of oil. That's why this is our time to also take the resources coming from the Eastern also Balkan countries in itself, because we also try to survive in this kind of war in itself, right? But moreover, okay, let's talk about how try to want to say that we have to leave the Eastern countries as the buffer zone because we do not want to deal with Russia anymore. We think that this is very problematic, because exactly Russia is very aggressive and also unpredictable. In the end of the day, you cannot predict what will happen in the future, right? Meaning that we have to take a preventive action exactly by taking over or by welcoming membership from Eastern itself. So that's why even when there is something happen in Eastern or even Balkan, at worst case scenario, EU can directly help them by sending troops and also sending very offensive military military things to this kind of war in itself, right? The problem why Russia and Ukraine is very severe is that first, EU and also NATO cannot help them directly because they are not the member in itself, right? Meaning that this kind of war will eventually happen more and more in opposition side of the house because you do not occupy or you do not welcome membership in itself, meaning that you cannot help them directly. But the problem is that Eastern also Balkan countries is also directly side by side with the EU in itself, right? Meaning that you will also try to endanger your membership, your member countries in the end of the day. So that's why rather than you are trying to always stay in a very gray area that you do not know what will happen with Russia doing in the future. We believe that it is still better for EU to just take a very direct action by welcoming the membership in itself. So that's why if the worst case happen, if Russia is that very unpredictable, you can always send a direct offensive in the end of the day. This kind of analysis never happened in OG because they're only simply saying that Russia will not attack because they afraid and they do not have this kind of same power in itself, right? Without actually explaining why the NATO also have or EU have the capacity to actually send a direct offense to the war that will happen at the worst case scenario in itself. But let's engage with also right? How they want to make this kind of Eastern as a buffer zone. We think that this is very cruel, right? Meaning that you will create a lot of casualties inside the Eastern Europe in the end of the day. And I think that this is very problematic mechanism to begin with, because we don't want our continent, for example, like Europe, to turn out like a very turmoil and also very bloody war like in Middle East coming from the Arab Saudi and also the Iranian government. This kind of proxy war in itself, right? We think that this is very problematic in the end of the day. We don't want this to happen in the EU continent in the end of the day. But moreover, let's talk about what the opening debate trying to say, right? About like give impacts to Balkan and also Eastern countries and whatsoever. We think that this is not only merely benefits for Balkan and also Eastern, but exactly it's because EU also depend on the Eastern and also Balkan countries in itself, right? We already explained to you that these countries have potential in mining, in natural gas and oil. They're also becoming the buffer zone from Russia and also the EU in itself. So that's why it's not merely that we will give benefits to the Balkan and also Eastern, but this is also part of the interest of the EU in itself to actually welcome membership from this kind of countries, right? OG never explained to you why that this is actually interest of the EU inherently. They only say that this can give benefits from to Balkan and also Eastern, and we can also promote the value without actually mechanizing it, right? How can OG benefits about promoting value it's a kind of fly is exactly through CG mechanism, right? Or CG explanation is exactly when you are trying to welcome them as a member, you have more power to control them, right? For example, exactly when OO try to say that these countries are very unstable, you have the power to actually control their financial and also their government, for example, right? My member already told you about how Poland try to be monarch, but it is cancelled because people or society in the Poland still want democracy. Exactly, this is the power of EU to actually cancel this kind of transition to monarchy in itself. That's why EU have the power to also like controlling this kind of financial also politics in itself. Moreover, my member already told to you about how they try to bail out for Greece, for example, because of their sudden change of the financial reform, and also try to make their own currency in itself, right? Meaning that EU still also have the capacity to actually, or have the also interest to help this kind of countries in the end of the day. Moreover, we think that this kind of trading from Eastern and also Balkan countries already happening, even if they are not member of EU in itself, right? What will happen is that this kind of trading will even get better because you have more control to actually control their financial, also your trading, like free trade area and whatsoever. This is only going to work under CG mechanism, and that's why we propose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, GovWhip, for those refined remarks. And finally, I would like to ask the opposition whip to speak and close the debate. Here.
Am I audible?
You are.
Okay. POI preference is you can just unmute yourself. Gender pronouns, she or her. Just 1 minute, please. Okay. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, honorable adjudicator, in the current situation, we are already losing a lot of people. People are suffering of cold because of this Russian thing that they have limited the amount of oil that needs to be exported to other nations, and all this Russian-Ukraine thing that is happening around the world, right? We already lost a lot of people, and people are already suffering because of cold, because of loss, because of no shelter and others. The last thing we need is another problem, right? So affirmative side of the team should prove to us in the end of the day on how they would be able to feed more people as a European Union nation, right? So because of they would want these other nations to come and join us in the end of the day. Before I go to my substantive, let me summarize how the debate has been gone so far. Firstly, in my debate, I will differentiate between the opening opposition and also how they differentiate with us. And then secondly, I will tell you my responses towards OG and then CG. Okay, so first of all, what differentiate us with OO is that from the very first, our goal is very different, honorable adjudicator. OO is giving you all these arguments on why it is justified enough for these nations to join the EU, but they want, in the end of the day, they want EU to help this nation. They want EU to accept them when these nations are stable enough, right? But from my first speaker's speech, we already told you that in the end of the day, Brexit will happen again just because of cheap labor and etc., which I will further elaborate more. So that is what differentiates us as CO with OO, right? So, and also coming from the OO side of the team, they expected the government side of the team to prove to the opposition side of the house on why having only one solution to why is there only one solution on helping these other nations, rather which is just by having them to join with the EU, right? But we question the more fundamental questions on from the very first, why should EU accept them to the EU, to join the EU itself? We think that we need to put ourselves in the shoe of EU and look at the advantage for EU in the end of the day, right? So now coming to my responses towards OG. OG has contributed really less arguments talking about firstly unity and safety, and secondly how you can better off the nations outside of EU with having them to join. But we think that having unity and safety and how you can better off the other nation is not the incentive of EU. We need to think of if EU wants other nations to join them, then we need to think what is the benefit for EU. We do not need to think of what is the benefit for other nation, right? So we think that the arguments coming from the OG is quite delusional from the very first place. Second of all, they talk about the reason why Ukraine and Russia is why Ukraine didn't join EU because of lateness, and thus Russia can have this power to throw them away, right? To invade them in the end of the day. But we think that Russia didn't join because of their lateness, but because of they are not eligible from the very first place to join, because the parameter for you to join a UE nation is that you need to firstly have economic benefits, and second, you need to align with the ideology that's coming from the EU, right? And we think that Ukraine itself is not a developed nation economically, and they do not fulfill the parameter of joining a EU nation, right? So that's my responses towards OG. The CG kind of differentiate their arguments talking about value and also tensions, which is different from OG. But first of all, talking about value, they think that with the more that we get more nations to join the EU and have their value and have them value come to us and then unite is a good thing, right? But we think if different country has different value, it's better for them to separate, because opposing government did not tell us the likeliness of how different value of nations would actually create peace in the end of the day, just because of they are a part of one big union, right? So just like my first speaker has stated, if you have Balkans and Eastern Europe European nations, which are, as we know, traditional and conservative nations, then we think that their value will be contradictory with EU values of having human rights, because EU basically promotes human rights and accept LGBT. If we accept these nations who are by default traditionals and conservative, then we think that it is most likely for trouble to happen in the end of the day, and we think that it is not the best solution for them to join, right? But secondly, we think that just like what I previously stated before, for a country to join the EU itself is that they need to be economically benefit. And if we look at the nation outside of European right now, they are basically just developing nations that are trying to get economic benefits. But we think that if they come to European nations, the EU, then they would just become a burden for the members of the EU itself. Just like what happened to British exit or Brexit, the British exit because they are actually a country who is capable enough to support themselves economically. And when they are a part of this union, and the union has some countries that are developing countries, then British countries just think that these nations is just a burden to them, and thus they leave. So if we accept Balkans and Eastern Europe country, then we think that it is most likely for other nations inside the EU to see them as a burden again, and perhaps a similar thing such as Brexit will happen again, right? So we think that to join the European Union is not the best thing for you to do. But secondly, talking about tension coming from the opposing government, they stated that tension is acceptable because at the end of the day, there will still be more trading. But we think that trading cannot occur with tensions, Honorable Adjudicator. We need to think of what's the likelihood of bilateral relationship happening with a nation that has tensions with each other, right? The only thing that would occur is not bilateral relation, but a messy membership inside the EU itself, which is contracts with peace ideology, right? So for those reasons, I am proud to oppose.
All right. Thank you very much, opposition, for those very fine remarks. Thank you very much, everyone. A wonderful debate. This is the end, so please virtually cross floor, shake hands. The judges will now retire to a breakout room, and we're going to make a breakout room after this. And we will meet you back in around 15 minutes as soon as the results are ready. Thank you.